What's up, guys? This is David from Everything Ethics, and today we're talking about the problems with utilitarianism. The reason I'm doing a video about the downsides of utilitarianism and not the downsides of other philosophies is because I think that utilitarianism is the most popular philosophy, and I think that people subscribe to it a little too quickly without actually thinking through its issues. So let's get into it. The first issue with utilitarianism is that it is much more difficult than you would think to judge what is good for the group as a whole. Many people want different things, and you have to make lots of assumptions about what would probably make people happy when you don't really know for sure. A lot of times, what would benefit society seems pretty clear. However, there are times where it is extremely debatable on what actually maximizes societal happiness. For example, it would seem that it would be moral from the utilitarian perspective to ban large soda drinks, because drinking soda excessively leads to numerous health problems, which in turn leads to great unhappiness. So in 2013, New York City did exactly that. They banned large sodas. However, New York City did not know how much people liked the large sodas, so the policy, which was intended to help people and promote the greater good, ended up only making people very unhappy. These kinds of blunders are where the phrase, "the road to hell is paved with good intentions," comes from, because although we may think we are promoting societal happiness, we actually might be not. The big problem with utilitarianism is that everyone has a different view on what a happy society is, so there's not always a clear answer on everything. The second problem with utilitarianism is that it often leads to tyranny of the majority and injustice. For example, let's say in a town there was a murder, and the police and the judge had a suspect, but had no evidence that the suspect committed the crime. However, the people were really mad and really wanted a conviction, and they would be way happier if the judge just convicted the suspect and sentenced him to death. So, under utilitarian principles, it would actually be ethical to falsely convict and falsely execute the suspect in order to appease the town. Convicting an innocent man to appease society is totally unjust, but technically ethical under utilitarianism. This kind of tyranny of the majority and injustice to appease the greater good has been used numerous times throughout history. For example, the Nazis and Hitler pledged that killing all the Jews would benefit the greater good of humanity. The whites in Jim Crow South said that segregation would promote the greater good for society. Oftentimes, people use utilitarian ethics in phrases like "for the greater good" to cover further atrocities and injustices. The third problem is that utilitarianism is only concerned with the ends and not the means. Utilitarianism is a consequentialist philosophy, which means what matters is what the results are and not what actually creates those results. So many times, utilitarianism labels acts as ethical that, although of positive outcomes, violate many people's rights in the process. Let me clarify with a real-world example. Back when COVID hit, many governments wanted to do what was best for the nation and minimize the damage caused by the disease. However, in the name of trying to protect the public health, i.e. maximize societal happiness, many governments ended up violating human rights, property rights, and freedom of speech. Did the ends justify the means in this case? Well, that's pretty debatable. It's often debatable in many different scenarios, and utilitarianism would say that if the ends justify the means, then it is ethical. The last problem with acting as a utilitarian is that utilitarianism tells people to value society over themselves, which is pretty unrealistic. Human nature usually makes us prioritize ourselves and our own success, and few people are willing to sacrifice their own well-being for society. For example, let's say that someone approached you and said that they were going to kill two random people that you didn't even know if you do not kill yourself. And let's assume that the two people dying would cause more total societal suffering than your suicide. So, under utilitarian principles, the ethical thing to do would be to kill yourself, because if you didn't kill yourself, you'd cause more societal suffering. However, almost nobody would ever do that, because sacrificing your life to society goes completely against all human nature. Utilitarianism is just unrealistic in practice. A true utilitarian would sell all of their property and donate it all to charity and the government to promote social well-being. Yet almost nobody does that because it's so irrational and so against human nature. Although impractical in some circumstances, utilitarianism's emphasis on analyzing societal impacts and the consequences of our actions is extremely important. However, utilitarianism is far from a perfect philosophy. See you in the next video.